Mining settlements. I will give a quick overview of the scope of space mining-driven advancements, a history, and then go into detail as well as give some anecdotes, in the next several posts. An unknown amount of objects and interplanetary locations are currently inhabited by mining operations and outposts. Space exploration in recent decades has become an independent industry as certain early locations became stable and habitable and reached material and financial autonomy. On these locations, research and scientific development were able to progress faster than their predecessors on Earth and achieved technological advancement more developed than Earth. Reasons for these developments happening in off-Earth settlements can be ascribed to a different paradigm, ethics and resources. Earth Command has been suspended due to the fact they lost leverage, but despite this, off-Earth settlements maintain a deeply rooted diplomatic relationship with Earth intelligences, in order to trade, share information, and overcome mutual challenges. On Earth, only a very select group of people are aware of the true advancement of humanity, and the thousands of off-Earth residents currently living in settlements. It is their job to maintain contact, and in some cases, travel to off-world settlements on a diplomatic mission. These trips are considered a life-altering experience for obvious reasons. Communications with Earth from settlements is also limited to officials and centralized. Between settlements, communication is more free and less formal, as basic infrastructure keeps their civilization going. The most interesting difference between Earth citizens and known settlements is their hierarchy. Since every settler has a task, they are classically born with less freedom and more duty than as though they would have had if they were born on Earth. These social structures would be considered slavery in Earth terms, but the most notable feature of this hierarchy is their dedicated regimen according to their assigned task. Many of them have underwent a rigid transformation from birth to enable them to become more suitable for a job. It can be said that the more specialized a certain function, the more extensively the subject has underwent programming, resulting in notable physical differences and abilities. I will detail more about this later. The techniques and principles these settlements were built on, all had origins on Earth and were founded by Earth missionaries, but have long been perfected and outmatched by the resulting proficiency and prowess of mining companies. Many mining companies build a limited abode on the surface of an object to place an observatory, communications center, dock, command center and some residence for central command and visitors. Most of the activity happens below ground where aside from mining, workers live, laboratories are outfitted, experiments and research is conducted and a whole ecosystem to support a settlement exists. Planetary locations can be more versatile for different purposes, such as weapon testing, aviation, or research dedicated to planetary exploitation, including potentially terraformation. Larger bases can also be used for breeding programs and can have a primarily societal characteristic, housing many citizens, though arranged according to the needs of a company nothing compared to Earth, as their lives are dictated by central command and in many cases they are an export product to be delivered to other missions. Off-world advancement has made Earth-based space exploration initiative, apart from regular close orbit activity, obsolete. This includes defense operations, entrepreneurial missions, communication and intelligence systems, as they are all related to Earth science, politics and economy. Space mining is a peaceful capitalistic endeavor where companies are able to compete, but in reality they mostly keep to themselves as there are objects plenty to mine and hostility is bad for business. It's an open secret that they spy on each other and there have been accounts of alleged sabotage but no major conflict or signs of overt hostility. The most powerful mining companies are actively communicating with Earth intelligence as they trade technology, resources and intelligence, but companies are neutral to Earth politics, and they like to maintain their position as frontrunners so they don't share their most potent and dangerous technology. Whatever deal is made is in mutual interest as to ensure a linear development on Earth, as our means of travel and communication to them is outdated. They monitor us closely and at all times keep a presence ready within reach, on a nearby outpost, in orbit, or on Earth. The only time to interfere is to avert cataclysmic disaster or threats to their infrastructure. During the days of cessation, direct efforts had to be taken to prove their capability to Earth Command. But for several generations now, a new balance between Earth and extraterrestrial civilization has been found in which trust and loyalty have been instrumental, despite Earth being out of the lead and left to their devices. Going into detail. Some interesting things that can be found in a human space settlements. First thing that will amaze you are the overall architecture, infrastructure, and technology if you were to arrive to a Class A settlement as an Earth diplomat, and the nonchalance of settlers that operate in this world naturally. And also, the views. When you meet High Command, you are given a tour of the facility. A standard Class A settlement will have a dome embedded in the object being mined, that gives a view of the sky above, as well as the vast scale of the operations inside, as this is the area that different departments come together: data center, command, in and outgoing traffic. This is the beating heart of the company and the pride of the settlement. It will become apparent, the different breeds of settlers performing their assigned task. Most notable at first sight is the data center. A small glass structure with several floors facilitates highly capable administrators, seemingly embedded into the infrastructure, seated on railed pods that allows them to operate the data center, as they interact with the operating system, the artificial intelligence that runs the facility. This building is a computer, manned by more than human, hyper-intelligent operators, capable of memorizing vast sequences of code, with such enhanced cranial properties they cannot live without support outside of this environment. They have no identity, they are not functionally human. They exist to support a computer system, analyzing data, calculating risk assessment, double-checking, troubleshooting. They might eventually not recognize a human being as their integration progresses, as social interaction for these operatives is limited from birth, and even their development significantly automated. Military personnel is not often trained on a typical mining location, but there are some stationed. Their most impressive feats are seen in action, as they pilot advanced machines no ordinary human pilot is capable of learning. The pilot breed undergoes a similar programming as the data operative, as they are also required to process complex information fast. However, they are more physically autonomous, are in fact athletic, and could also be deployed for other tasks and vehicles. An impressive display of action is rarely seen for diplomats, as crises are rare and rarely need deployment. One of the more impressive vehicles is the Colibri, a new small lightweight vessel for one man, that can make rapid maneuver changes such as stopping, accelerating, ascending/descending, taking turns, fly at high speeds and access difficult terrain such as a crater, crevasse or structure. This vehicle is suitable for crisis response, scouting, and stalking, is suitable for the vacuum of space as well as atmospheric flight, and has been equipped on Earth as well, and is able to enter and leave the atmosphere in flight. The technology is not understood by Earth scientists and could not be manned by Earth military personnel, as no Earth citizen can process the reaction times required to pilot an aircraft capable of such speed and maneuvers. It has a cockpit, and several wings that can be adjusted in flight to perform certain movements or to form a certain profile. It can appear to look like a dart, a star, a disc, or the more conventional triangle. Notably, the line of aircraft this was part of was based on Earth technology, as the foundation of Earth aviation continued to be instrumental for current military development. However, to most Earth observers, this craft would be unrecognizable as it outmatches their understanding of military aviation in every regard. It is reported to make a distinct metallic rattle or whiz as its lightweight appendices carry it through the air, giving its unique characteristics the nickname of the colibri, or hummingbird. A recent crisis has caused a Class A mining operation to be in jeopardy as a violent disease surfaced from beneath the facility, that went undetected as the data center was believed to be compromised, allowing the spread to be rampant across the facility until it reached upper levels, causing High Command to initiate quarantine protocol and prompted the arrival of a colibri and a subsequent evacuation of present Earth Diplomat as well as High Command. Majority of assets at point of extraction had been lost to the affliction, which attacks and hijacks neural networks, spreads through contact and causes excited delirium, inhibits impulse control and causes explosive, rabid behavior with a fixation on organisms lacking a pheromone that is expelled in infected organisms. Scientific efforts are made to breed immunity in order to successfully research the component found in several mining operations that caused multiple reports of outbreak-related malfunction. Earth population rumored to be designated test group to attempt herd immunity.
Bump, I need more OP. Can you describe some of the other breeds and their physical characteristics?
High Command are the class that carry the self-assigned responsibility of human genetic purity. They practice eugenics to a high standard, and are all-round fit, intelligent and have excellent discipline and work ethic. Their average skill sheet outmatches what is rarely seen naturally on Earth and would be considered exceptional to us. They could compete in Olympics and high-level chess competitions with fair ease. A stark contrast with miners who are selected for brute strength and only the necessary intelligence to follow orders and perform simple tasks. Consider the work ethics of Chinese with the physical strength of Africans. They work hard. Describe some of the other breeds and their physical characteristics.
That's dope. What happens when one of the assigned classes want more out of life? Have there been organized revolts consisting of multiple or single worker classes?
No such reports are known, and it is unthinkable given the structural organization of these settlements. The settlers lack incentive for revolts. A miner is a miner, he is not a dreamer. If he dreams of mining more than he had the day before. There are no stars for him to see. No world above. No question of authority. These systems are fail-safe as long as the integrity of command is intact. The power that comes with the programming techniques that enable the programmer to create a physiological slave could spell disaster in the wrong hands. So far, everything points towards these systems being put towards their own progression. The same goes for these indoctrination methods in breaking of the will as with aviation. The basis was laid on Earth, and this too is being done by intelligences. They don't just hire geniuses, they make them. It's pretty old stuff.
Especially amongst a lethal disease, I'd imagine shit would get chaotic and unpredictable very fast. What happens when a mining settlement breaks down into unmitigated chaos?
A normal response is containment, decontamination, and evacuation, with minimal loss of assets, and in some cases continued operations if the company feels safe doing so or can afford to sacrifice some workers.
How many companies are there?
Less than a dozen. A company can own several installations.
Are each company different in their ethical treatment of worker classes, professional hierarchies, etc., or do all of them follow the same template of operations, so to speak?
There are differences in terms of which direction they take as a society, since a company isn't just a company, they are a human experiment following a certain path, with their own choices, developments and techniques. The ones conducting business with Earth are considered Class A companies. Earth intelligences are incapable of tracking all activity and development. We have to trust Class A relations data and what corresponds with our own findings. Models predict Class A loyalty to Earth in case of conflict with other off-Earth settlements. We are given just enough to defend ourselves but not to overtake their capability. Class A civs keep us down intentionally as to protect their own economy and off-world relations. If the balance is lost, rogue civs might just want to commit piracy, hijack a couple installations, or put their claims on Earth soil, in which case they need to overthrow our governments and subject humanity to brutal slavery, and they can.
Since when has this been going on, and what moons, planets, asteroids, etc. have colonies?
The basis for these settlements have been laid on Earth over the past 100 years, from aviation to mass psychology. These things were invented on Earth. World War II kicked off space travel. In the 50s they started sending people up. The astronauts on TV weren't the first, many test runs were made and a small base on the moon was present. The TV show was for propaganda purposes. Quickly programs were developed to facilitate complete off-world communities as it would be more profitable. If these things weren't done in secret, everyone and his mom would be in the space mining industry, and it would be a giant mess.
Found any extraterrestrial life forms on any?
There are reports of life with extraterrestrial origin, but nothing more advanced than ourselves. A big problem is running into frozen ancient pathogens because it can shut down an operation.
Thanks OP, I'ma steal all this shit and write a novel now.
If you reference this thread, I'm buying it. Here's the current situation. Either we concede with our Class A superiors and they get to lay claim on Earth soil and subject us to their command. In return we get protection, advancement and a place in the interplanetary economy. It can put Earth back on track. Or we allow for current affairs to continue at risk of any other company taking advantage of our vulnerability, with no guarantee of safety or progress. Currently talks are held with global intelligences to discuss our shared position in interplanetary affairs and where our future lies. It looks like many voices are in favor of conceding with our Class A superiors. However, not everyone is aware of the sacrifice that has to be made in order to take that step, as 99% of humanity is unfit to be included in their society.
We're a stagnant species anyways. Our progress works like this already. Most people just eat, sleep and work while a few super geniuses revolutionize the planet. Regular people to genius are what smartphones are to tin cans and fishing line in a tree fort. The only issue is that every class you've mentioned sucks hardcock. I don't want to be some shitfuck miner, some inhuman algorithm sorter, etc. It seems like this is really some capitalist dystopia where only the elites are even allowed to have free will.
A good portion of people are normal. Scientists, builders, teachers. Aside from eugenic enhancements, no major procedure is necessary to tweak their abilities for these key roles. There will always be some selection and indoctrination, but that's also true for anyone on Earth. The difference is we are not the frontrunners and our ways have become outdated, obsolete, dysfunctional. Every space settler is a descendant from the most capable scientist, astronaut and military personnel that the best economies at the times could produce. They have evolved. It's not going to be a question of what if they begin to decide our fate for us, but when. As a diplomat, my role in our future can be decisive, and I am not opposed to pruning the genetic waste in order to transform Earth into an interplanetary hub. Perhaps our influence as Earthlings will introduce more freedom, more secularism. We are already a market anyways through diplomatic relations. It's unthinkable to expose the masses of poor, uneducated, frustrated, tribal humanities to the structures of organization and technology applied in space. Chaos would ensue and abuse of technology would quickly throw the world into disarray, negatively impacting our chances in the interplanetary community and pose a safety risk to outer space settlements. You don't want to give a bunch of nukes to chimpanzees. Space exploration requires a strong sense of responsibility in order to be successful. The power the average space traveler has can't be trusted to the average Earthling. Not in a 100 years of indoctrination or eugenics. Most human breeds are simply unfit. We're locked up on prison Earth with our primitive counterparts for our own safety with outdated technology. You don't know any better. This is your home, this is your life. But in reality it's primitive and poorly developed. Earth science is restricted by morals, dominated by politics and usurped by corporations. The real change was happening in space.
Can you please tell us more about interesting, unusual, or otherwise relevant information or findings about certain places in the solar system, such as Europa, Titan, Mars, or Enceladus, if you have actually explored or established colonies in those worlds?
The Moon has an outpost where most Earth/off-Earth meetings takes place. Since it is close, not intimidating to Earth residents, and provides plenty of space to demonstrate new weapons tech. The asteroid belt has several Class A installations, as most installations in our solar system are owned by Class A mining, meaning directly descending from past Earth initiative. When you go farther out, independent and rogue companies operate in their own regions. They are mostly confined to the Oort cloud. I've seen the Moon and most recently an installation in the asteroid belt. They probe objects and test for density and material. When a site is suitable, station modules are shipped and attached to the surface, after which operations can begin fairly quickly. Within a year an object can house up to 100 settlers in a protected, self-sustained environment. I only have estimates as to the spread and amount of objects being mined and how many people live off Earth. I haven't seen it, but I heard Mars has a greenhouse colony in a ravine, they call it the Trench, where they are reviving indigenous fauna spores and seeds, for terraformation solutions. They compare the material to prehistoric Earth plant life, but it may be due to the fact those samples are more resilient and durable and more suitable for long periods of hibernation.
How long does a spaceship take to travel from, say, the Moon all the way out to the Oort cloud? Anything interesting going on in the Kuiper Belt and worlds like Pluto, Eris, and other trans-Neptunian planetoids? I also find it kind of odd they genetically engineer humans for mining operations, as opposed to simply automating as much as possible in that regard.
In fact, it's in the Kuiper Belt where the first companies seceded from Central Command and expanded towards outer objects and eventually set out for the Oort cloud. My knowledge is limited. I would say it takes less than 5 years to reach the Oort cloud. You could have a basis set up in 25 years and from there colonize surrounding objects with more ease. There won't be any concern for scarcity for the foreseeable future. That is, in terms of materials. Human resources have been the main important asset for the success of these operations. This has been the way it's set up from the first day, and those fundamentals are still in effect to this day. When the first pioneers set out, technology wasn't developed to such an extent that automation could be considered as one of the possibilities. Even then, no automated system can truly replace the role of human conquest even if they are being enrolled today. Yes, There is automation and artificial intelligence, but they serve human command and won't just replace the progress and importance of human resources that have been at the core of these operations from the get-go, and have been developed just as much as other disciplines of human development. A robot wouldn't need to even mine anything in the first place. It could just sit in a corner and be happy. No, due to an egocentric approach, a deeply rooted sense of importance and duty and loyalty has been instilled in the improved breeds of humans, most importantly the upper class, such as scientists, military, command. They have evolved.
How can I join a research project on these bases? I'm a scientist.
Right now Earth is only interesting for mining companies for trade and medicine. Our population is a good repellent against a potential takeover since we are quite useless and unproductive, and unfit to compete with their social order and technology. But we tend to share diseases around until we develop immunity and vaccines that can be traded in return for technology. But now it's a problem where every once in a while they dig up the same pathogen that causes them to abandon an installation and move to the next one. They call it the Fermi fever. This one has no known origin and they are hesitant handling it to do more research and develop their own cure, when they could just as well relocate. Right now there is reason to believe they are considering releasing it on Earth, let it run its course, and when our global order is destroyed, move in and take control. It's a big dilemma since on one hand I support our integration into the modern age of space exploration, it is also my duty to protect our interests and trying to establish a diplomatic solution with our superiors. But I'm running out of ideas, companies are getting impatient, and it's a waiting game for one of them to invade and subject Earth to their system and take our resources.
Another question I have is, how do those colonies and their people deal with the much lower gravity? Are they physically unable to live on Earth now?
Not sure about the exact details, but the settlements have breathable air and gravity around 1G. At least the ones I know of.
Thank you for a very interesting thread, OP. What will happen to the 99% unfit for this advanced way of life? Who decides who is fit?
That's the big issue right now. Earth humans are obsolete. What now? Do we continue as a pet project for the companies and trade for medicine and experimentation? My hope is that of each tribe on Earth, each race, samples or individuals of the purest breed can be taken to off-world locations for further integration, and maybe even repopulate the Earth with a better version of ourselves. This would preserve our biodiversity and usefulness in studies of eugenics and medicine. In any case, it is time for a new era. Our days are over, and our usefulness is coming to an end.
Fermi fever. Well, let us help. I mean, who can?
Unfortunately, nothing can be done. You may have noticed already soft disclosure coming out in the past years, and at this point I wish it was aliens. It would be much easier to explain and there would be no moral consequences if anything happened. Depending on what narrative they spin, you should start worrying. If it goes towards that this tech could be from black book projects, it's good news. If the narrative goes towards fearmongering and alien invasion, it means whatever is about to happen, no party wants to take responsibility for it. But I am not the highest authority in these matters. More intelligences are involved, as well as other wealthy and powerful elites. It is also possible that these sightings are the result of Earth citizens having gotten their hands on technology, threatening the powers that be. Maybe that is someone like you, a vigilant, there to strike back at any hostiles, or perhaps something more sinister. I haven't been briefed well since my latest emergency, and with crises emerging and communications down I might as well take it here to gain some attention. If I'm being left in the dark, my mission is jeopardized and my loyalty lies with Earth, allowing me to whistle blow. The people who need to know this is their call for action. The thing is about to be blown right open. It's a miracle people haven't figured it out themselves. Well, many did.
Another question. Have they done any exploration or attempted some sort of colony or whatnot on Venus? I'm more fascinated by that hostile planet than Mars.
When we still had a say in things, Venus was long considered a good tourist destination. Plans were drawn to launch Heaven's Resort, a luxury Zeppelin hotel in the clouds of Venus much like a yacht at sea. Unfortunately, space exploration took a different turn as miners became obsessed with accumulation of wealth, and expansion of their syndicate and self-interest. Now Earth missions are restricted to whatever they allow us to discover. Our halting efforts in space exploration and scientific developments are deliberate. But off Earth, development continued in the same speed as it did before on Earth. Our major advancement in the past 70 years are touchscreens, while World War II saw jet propulsion and stealth technology. This should make anyone suspicious. Not that anyone has the power to make a difference, and if they do, they risk being sabotaged. Musk is far more inventive than it seems, he just perfectly knows what he is allowed to do and what not. That car in orbit is a huge fuck you to Space Command. Anyway, Venus is mostly used for waste disposal.
So what if a terrestrial like me, scientist, wants just to do all his biotech bioinformatics stuff and doesn't give a fuck about who is in charge of planet Earth? That's what I mean for helping. I just like to do what I'm doing and I don't mind working for new overlords.
You are on Team Earth. Your achievements will count for scientific progress on Earth, which is still legit and valuable.
Well, after learning about all of this, I'd say it's more irrelevant. But thanks for the support. It's like being kids left to play with toys at this point, with this perspective.
Well, if an invasion is imminent, I have forewarned you, and you can use this information to protect your loved ones. Save this thread. Narrative is being pushed more and more to aliens, which is a good indicator they plan to restructure Earth. I wouldn't hold it against you to defend against hostile powers. I'm sure that whatever they throw at us, pockets of survivors will remain. To what avail, I don't know. But as long as there is humanity, there is hope. I must stress that at this moment I am in the dark as to the current state of affairs, which is unusual, but if there was an emergency I'd be informed. So I can't predict the future, but things are unstable right now.
Is any of this the reason why humans haven't stepped on the moon in 50 years? And also there are reports that the first astronauts there reported spacecraft there. Was it the people that had settled there before and not actual aliens?
Absolutely. Early space missions were so successful that they became autonomous and authority came under their own command. All we could do was sit and watch in anticipation, but gradually it became clear we were losing control and they got ahead of us. There were some incidents to try to regain control which ended in a downed craft in the Nevada desert and subsequently being unable to reverse engineer it. We sent our best up there and they said, "So long, sucker." Eventually all we could do was beg, and since then we help them any way we can in return for whatever bone they throw us. Under Trump some of the early days optimism is back. Which is good. Nothing prevents us from establishing a presence in orbit, and developing our own technology, and it opens up more doors with our off-world relations either by improving our own tech or by making trade easier with a space-focused economy. That's what Trump does. When there is someone higher up he needs a favor from, he isn't going to be depressed and play the victim. No, he takes initiative, makes a friendly gesture and starts a conversation. He did the same with Russia, North Korea.
Invasion imminent. How would they do that? Do they have nukes or some other unfathomable weapons? I mean, from what you said, there's only a few thousand people out there versus millions of military around the world. Did the technology gap get so wide in just a few decades?
It depends on their goals. They can persuade governments to surrender peacefully and from there subject the population with an iron fist. If they want depopulation, an outbreak is very precise in targeting large populations and leaving infrastructure intact. But yes, their military is more developed than what we can conceive.
I did that even before coronavirus outbreak. Are you with us in case shit hits the fan?
I'm an asset. I'll be taken prisoner ahead of an attack and kept alive for as long I am resourceful. But I am with you. I wish I could do more. Your best chance of survival is hiding and not letting anyone know you exist. They won't care about 5% survivors. They're not going to physically search every inch too for human flesh. But anything that makes you less visible will help. No contact, no electricity, stay in a fallout bunker that nobody knows exists. And if you have a bunker, set up a network with other people who do, because you're going to want to share news, trade and make long-term survival plans. Does it make sense to you that our development stopped after World War II? That we have had no major advancement in military and science? The stuff we use now is the same stuff from 70 years ago except overdeveloped. We are working with outdated tools, overpower them and call it progress. The progress that does happen is grassroots and won't get picked up by the masses, and in government it's only what we're allowed to have and it doesn't benefit the planet or anyone's life. The 50s and 60s were full of propaganda to prepare the population for a space-oriented society. That's when we still had the upper hand. Guess when it stopped? We did a moon landing and called it a day. They don't control or dictate what happens on Earth, But they do monitor us, manipulate certain events and actively play a role in our scientific advancement. They even do it in such a way that no world government gets the upper hand and that a balance between powers is maintained. They feed breadcrumbs, always keeping a distance between us and them. But this is not sustainable, a long-term solution must come.
If there's all this communication between all these space companies, why hasn't anyone on Earth detected them? I mean, amateur astronomers and whatnot detect signals all the time. Why wouldn't someone detect some weird radio signal or something from one of these colonies?
Bases use a data relay system and ships are synchronized to central command. It's Hive technology. The computer knows where any given pilot is and can direct beams at precise targets. They don't blast radio waves into a wide circumference like we do for the past 100 years. I'm talking about optical lasers. They can't be picked up by anyone besides the intended recipient.
How do political situations on Earth reflect in space? Are world governments covertly collaborating in space, or do political rivalries spill out there?
Yes, there is covert collaboration. I am a government agent and everything relating to space mining is covert to the public of Earth. The projects began in secret and these secrets were never disclosed due to them having gotten out of control. We are in a diplomatic crisis ever since. But their politics are different to ours, and complete separate. For example, you might be worried who the next president might be next year, while they are debating what should be done with Earth. It's a problem for them too, because we aren't in any war with them, but they can't integrate our population safely without it being seen as an act of war by us. This is why I'm worried about the alien invasion narrative. I'm feeling as though Earth is being sold off to the highest bidder. Despite that, people are working hard to make up for our lag, such as working on our own doctors. Our goal is to just try and break even with our cousins in space for a peaceful integration. Back to the prospects of a space-oriented society.
Since you mentioned colonies all the way out in the Oort cloud, have they sent probes or something to other stars, like Alpha Centauri? I mean, people here have sent probes that have left the solar system already. I figure an advanced space company would have done the same decades ago.
I doubt it, but I don't know for sure. The next arms race is to whoever weaponizes antimatter in the next centuries. From then we can move up the Kardashev scale as a collective, as power will become centralized and all will fall under command of a single power. That's a long time from now, but protocols are already being focused toward that goal.
Can you elaborate on corporate governance? How are mining companies incorporated? Who owns their shares? Are they privately held or traded on an exchange? What currencies are in circulation? How are income and wealth distributed? What is GDP per capita by Earth's standards? Are there other sectors, such as services, food and agriculture, logistics, entertainment?
A single company will have an automated system that regulates physical stock, trading and supply chain between different locations. There is a market between companies, but that's more of a bartering system where AI handles deals and transactions. These things are way more refined and precise than systems we use. I'm not sure about the finer details of lower class life. Maybe miners use systems to trade things of value. Maybe there is a black market for rogue colonies and backdoor deals. I haven't been involved in these matters.
What do the people who are pretty much trapped in those habitats do for entertainment?
They take joy in honing their skills and training, which they can do in a simulated environment. In fact, it's part of their regimen as it keeps them in proper condition. We have 3 categories of tech. Stuff that came from us that is publicized, i.e., GPS, stuff that came from us that is classified, and stuff from space that is classified. Stuff in space used to come from us, now they are self-sufficient. But they still work from the basis we provided, so we can estimate which projects they have been able to finish. They have projectile weapons and energy weapons, plasma and radiation. Just like we do, but they're a step ahead. The one limitation I know they have is restricted use of AI in defense situations. War and combat are uniquely human situations, and they are still in the process of tuning AI to reliably operate a system that can make better decisions than a trained person, before fully automating their defense apparatus. DRS is data relay system, in which machines communicate on long distances using lasers. Your proposition of taking terrestrians on exchange is inadequate. First, it's inefficient to expend resources into an asset there is no use for. They're not going to want to babysit tourists. Second, there's too many people and not enough capacity to re-educate enough people at a time. The birth rate on Earth is higher than people can be taken in. They would just be another handful of nutjobs who had nothing to the global consciousness, even if they do speak the truth. The space program was birthed from Operation Paperclip in conjunction with US intelligences. There was no ideology on our agenda. The goal was purely to get our hands on jet propulsion to be the first to mine ores from space and boost our economy. Aside from technology, indoctrination was equally important in ensuring an efficient and fail-safe staff. But their success worked against us and they seceded. We never predicted this could happen. I'm not officially briefed about Antarctica, but it's an open secret they have their Earth base there. I suspect a legitimate Nazi presence was holding off there for decades after the fall of the Reich, under command of Hitler from Argentina. And that our operation was thwarted due to infiltrators who then landed on Antarctica and rescued the personnel. This implies that our German assets in Operation Paperclip had not surrendered and managed to covertly direct a coup against Earth Command. After all, the indoctrination and mind control techniques we applied were in part adopted from Nazi techniques. Evidently, we underestimated the success of those techniques, and the level of conviction of Nazis as well. What Antarctica is used for now, I don't know, because I have been taken to the moon, but it's always been clear that they have been selective in what they share with whom. It's clear that there is still a propaganda campaign against these supposed long-dead antagonists, leaving me to wonder what powers are still involved when they have to come up with pick-related